Hi, I'm Brian Helgeland. I'm the writer and director of the film, and welcome to the commentary. According to the dictionary, the definition of legend is an unverified story handed down from earlier times that is popularly believed to be true. So take what you want out of that. One of the very first photo images that I saw when I was researching this film was of Reggie Kray's hearse. It featured a 6-foot-long arrangement of white carnations that spelled out legend. And with everything that I had heard and read during my research, the name legend seemed to fit very well as a title. And so I took it on as almost the very first thing. Right here you hear Carter Burwell's very fine score. Carter is old-fashioned in that he still believes in thematics. Legend, of course, is narrated by Frances Kray, Reggie's wife. And the idea here is that she starts in almost, what you don't know is that she's dead when she's narrating and she's looking down from heaven. And her narration gives her a duality of her own that the twins have by naturally being twins. It leaves Frances innocent in the film, but not so innocent in the narration.
Bloodthirsty, illogical.
Back to my research, one of the first people I met was David Bailey, the photographer who took the famous photo of them. And he pointed out to me that they were all a product of time and place. So it's London in the 1960s, which is very formative for them, much like Al Capone couldn't have existed without Chicago in the 1920s and Prohibition, Bugsy Siegel in Las Vegas after the war. We were very fond of this shot. We're on Reggie's back. He takes us out onto the street. And this is Valence Road in the East End of London in Bethnal Green. And the East End of London is very much a character in the film. And he takes us out here. We see the street. We come all the way around. We see that structure in the background is a gasometer. It held natural gas. They're all over the East End at that time and less so now. But that becomes important at the end of the film for reasons I'll say at the end of the film.
You know, with all them, rapists, murderers, you got to lock away, ain't it? But where do you take a turd in there? I suppose just hold it in.
It's Chris Eccleston, a very fine actor who I'd always wanted to work with.
All right, then, have a lovely day. Cheer up, it's nearly Christmas. Sorry about that.
Albert Donahue here is played by Paul Anderson. Albert Donahue was Reggie Kray's driver and his right-hand man. They liked American cars. You can see the Ford Galaxy here. We started out with, we love the engine sound on this thing. It's a little bit of a gag here with the car the police are driving. The Anglia has a kind of a fluttery engine and the Galaxy's very deep-throated.
Hi, Vera. How you doing? You good? Lovely.
It's a classic. The track you're hearing here, Green Onions by Booker T and the MG. We very much liked that sound and that groove for Reggie to start the film.
Thanks, Reg.
And the soundtrack has a lot of instrumental music, which was very popular in the 60s. You could have a #1 hit that was an instrumental. But here you see Valence Road and around, this is shot behind Waterloo Station in London, which is south of the river. And he comes around the corner here and we're in Greenwich, which is way up the river. So production designer has his work cut out for him to marry these locations together because this world doesn't exist anymore in London. And so we had to find little bits of it all over the place and put it together. Tom Conroy, the production designer, doing a very good job.
Who are you?
Frances. Frank's sister.
Hang about, I recognise you, actually. I recognise you.
The door, of course, Emily Browning's introduction, very simple blocking, but we wanted to use this big step down as a fun thing for the two of them, and she's sort of eye to eye with him until she steps down, and we come into this shot. That green door directly behind Tom Hardy is the door where the Krays lived in the 1990s film, The Krays. And when we were scouting the location, we looked at that as Frances's house, and the guy who owned it said, hey, yeah, they shot the Krays in here, so being superstitious, we immediately moved to the next door over. But this was Valence Road for the Krays. This is Ormsby Street in our film, where Frances lived, which was a couple of blocks around the corner.
Half a minute, Reg. Right down.
Is he in trouble?
Yeah, he is. Will you go out with me? I'll go
There was always a mystery about Frances at this point in her life. She had been away, as they say, and no one knew why. And there were different theories as to whether she had maybe tried to kill herself as a teenage girl or she had had an abortion. But there was a traumatic event in her life that she was just coming out of when she first met Reggie.
Thank you.
Here you see Tara Fitzgerald, very fine actress who plays her mom. And then we're off.
Have a seat again, Frank, all right? And it's back to the cheese shop.
Colin Morgan, who plays her brother Frank, who we see here, didn't have a driver's license. So we couldn't use him because he's Reggie's driver if he didn't learn how to drive. So he had to learn how to drive for the film. And basically the very first car he ever drove was this 19-foot-long Lincoln Continental. Here he is in the Galaxy, realizing what power steering does for you, because these cars don't have power steering. So you got to really turn the wheel.
She's been away. She's a bit, fragile, Reg.
Oh, yeah.
Tom, I really like him, kind of slouchy and gangstery back here, as a contradiction to the way he is with Frances at the door. And that was the thing with Reggie, is he's always the character he needs to be, depending on who's in front of him. And we'll get into that a little bit more later.
How long do you reckon it'll take for him to twig out?
Here, we want to use the neighborhood.
Cat and mash.
They know the neighborhood, and Nipper Reed, the cop who Chris plays, doesn't know the neighborhood as well.
The copper on the Kray's case. And he made his presence.
Frances describes him here as heavy-footed, which means he wanted them to know he was surveilling them. He wanted them to know he was watching them all the time. He didn't hide it. He's not trying to sneak up on them. He just wants to be always there, omnipresent.
The last third at the back of this geezer's head.
So we could come now into the introduction to Ron. Reggie, we introduce him on his back.
Give Ron.
Ron is full on here, his face. In a way, it's because Ron is very honest. He's very upfront. What you see is what you get with Ron, with Reggie being a little more elusive.
Yeah.
I was told a story by a guy named Wilf Pine, who knew the twins when they were in prison, about how Ron would will other prisoners to give him their breakfast. So I adapted that here with the sausage story. And sausages became a kind of motif for Tom and I. Whenever we had to discuss something, we would do it over a sausage. So we'd head out to a restaurant, the Sausage House, or there was one in Soho, I forget the name of it. They all had funny names, like the House of Wieners and things like that. But we would always settle our differences over a sausage. So that became a kind of running gag with the two of us.
Passion on you, Ron. Passion on you.
Ron had been sentenced to 3 years in prison for grievous bodily harm. Near the end of his sentence, he was certified insane and remanded to a mental hospital.
This is Goodmayes Hospital, the location. It's out in Essex, out past where the Olympics were held.
You want a raspberry?
This is Nick Farrell, playing the psychiatrist, Dr. Humphreys, and you might remember him or not from Chariots of Fire. He's one of the young, speaking of the Olympics, he's one of the young runners in that film, running down the beach and all that, and with the famous music playing.
He may not be inclined to provide a favorable evaluation of my employer.
And who's your employer?
This is Pat Connolly, who was a member of their firm, played by Adam Fogarty. And we'll see a lot of members of the firm as we go along, but this was Big Pat Connolly, who was a doorman and a kind of leg breaker for them.
Set your time.
Ronald Kray possesses possibly the soundest mind.
Something someone told me about Ron was paranoid schizophrenic, but someone said to me that you knew you were okay if you could see Ron's teeth. And if you couldn't see his teeth, then get out of there and watch out. And that means if he wasn't talking or smiling, if he was like this, like he sat here now, you can't see his teeth, and you're in some danger here.
The rest of us.
So it's just a little thing, but something you keep in mind as you watch the film.
Mr. Kray, I hope you know what you're doing.
Yeah, I know what I'm doing. I'm going back to London. I'm going to take the car.
Your brother has no real idea.
I love how Tom walks in this film, especially when he's Reggie.
Senses. I've never
He's kind of like a panther almost,
reassurance.
whereas Ron's much more solid, like a barge. But Reggie's a panther, and Tom inhabits that and gives him that shoulder roll, and it's very fun to watch him moving around.
It's called Stematol. You need to give it to your brother twice a day. Oh, it's going to be serious trouble.
We shot Frances a lot looking at herself in the mirror 3 or 4 times, all through the film. So this is her and her twin in a way. She always struck me as a very kind of brave girl. She's dating a guy who's a gangster. She ultimately leaves a guy who's a gangster in a time when women didn't leave their husbands. And I was very taken with all that as I researched.
Mum, she doesn't look like a harlot.
What she's wearing doesn't matter. When people see her with Reggie...
Here you see her in a trouser suit the costume designer Caroline Harris created for her. We would say, in America, we'd say a pantsuit, but the British say a trouser suit. Looking very stylish up here at the top of the stairs. And Tom looking very stylish down here. So they've kind of met their matches, so to speak.
Hello?
Hello.
And there's the Lincoln Continental.
Lovely.
We had a rule about the Lincoln that it could never fit into frame sideways. It was such an enormous car. So there you see, well, you're going to see it sideways, but at first you see the nose of it poking out. And you see it dead on. Later, you see the back end of it, and we were always very keen about how we were going to shoot the Lincoln.
Hello.
And you don't find white walls like that anymore.
Reggie?
So now, this is the start of a very long Steadicam shot. It's 7.5 minutes long.
So how come you're letting us in then, mate?
Have a good night.
You know, it's a gangster. You like to have a nice Steadicam shot in a gangster movie, and you have to have the nerve to have one, despite all the great Martin Scorsese Steadicam shots. So it's a little bit of a challenge.
Gives you any trouble, come and speak to me. Come on. Yeah, Mum? Yeah, I'm good. She's good.
What we were very keen about, that was Mel Rado at the bar, the actor, playing Ian Barry,
Yeah, well, I own it. It's my club.
another member of the firm. And what the idea was you want to see Reggie in all his guises. And we thought if we could do it in one shot, it would be kind of fantastic.
How's the film?
This is the Double R Club, it was called. Double R for Reggie and Ron. And Reggie was running it while Ron was locked away for a couple of years, as you see him in the beginning there.
Reggie, that's Joan Collins.
Yeah, it might be, yeah. We had that Barbara Windsor in here.
But Reggie sort of presents himself however he needs to present himself. One thing to his guy at the door, a little bit of a warning to his guy at the bar, meeting and greeting people as he comes into the bar,
Would you like a seat?
squiring Frances, being her date for the night. Now dealing with the members of the firm as they come up.
It's important as well. So, Reggie. All right.
This is Chris Mason, who plays Ronnie Hart, and Steve Thompson, who plays Ronnie Bender, 2 more members of the firm.
Excuse me. Back a minute. You see what What is it?
Back here.
What?
Now we go with Reggie out the back. He's getting a little annoyed,
Why?
You know what I mean?
and he's got some business to deal with back here with Jack the Hat McVitie. His fate is intertwined with this man. You don't know it yet, but as he sits down here, he's going to have a couple of meetings with Jack during the course of the story, and it's not going to end well with them.
A purple art business, a pill gun.
Go on.
Jack here would like to explain himself.
Go on.
Go on, Jack, tell Reggie what you told me.
Well, Rich.
It was a bit of a mystery, Jack the Hat, why Reggie killed him for me. And the funny thing about the Krays was that you knew when certain events happened. You knew George Cornell was killed by Ron on this date. You knew which date they went to prison. You knew which date Reggie killed Jack the Hat. But for each one of these events, there were many different interpretations as to why they happened. And as I was developing the story and writing the screenplay, I could never answer the question why Reggie killed Jack. And I did by the end, and it unlocked a lot of things in the screenplay, and I'll get into that as we get to that scene later on.
Pay back every fucking penny you owe. Do you understand?
I was going to suggest that.
Good. Right. Are we done? Everybody happy? Right then. Can I get back to my fucking evening? Thank you. Thank you very much, Albie. Cheers.
But you see the cruel side of Reggie here with his classic cigarette punch, as they called it. And depending on who tells the story, Reggie either broke the jaws of 5 different men doing this, or 25 different men doing this, or 125 different men doing this. But it was his signature cruelty in a way. He'd offer a cigarette to someone that he didn't like, and as they opened their mouth to take it, he would give them a punch in the jaw. And your jaw being open makes it more likely to be broken. So we're back to Reggie's many guises here. He's in the back punching this guy out. It's still all the same shot.
I'm entertaining. All right, so I'm going to have an evening to myself.
This is important.
And he's now dealing with his lieutenant, Donahue, and now back out for his date with Frances.
Hello. Did I miss anything important?
No, just me.
That is important.
Is it?
Very important.
And the waiters are gonna almost drop the drink on the tray there, ruining our shot. This is take 9 out of 9 takes.
Your brother, he was telling me.
We didn't have a lot of money on this film, so you'd think that you'd have a day or two to shoot a scene like this, but we had a half a day because we had shot something else that morning.
Not so bad with these things.
Just got bigger dreams than pushing a pram or having...
But I had walked it through with the cinematographer, Dick Pope, when we were scouting and during the tech scout, and then we had gone there a day to go over it. And the two of us walked it all through the bar and sorted out where the different dialogue bits were going to be said. And then the actors came and rehearsed it, and rehearsed and rehearsed and rehearsed, and we walked it through with the operator and finally started shooting. It was very hot in there. It was raining outside. We couldn't let the extras out to get a breath because it was pouring rain and very much under the gun. And that's how we went with it.
I like the money and I like the respect of being a club owner. I'm not a gangster. I could have been a boxer, but then,
I really enjoy seeing Tom
I'd end up looking like
go through all these gear shifts in one take and not having to really play it. And a lot of people haven't noticed it's one shot, so I think that's a success, and we've passed our gangster Steadicam test.
the world anything.
So long as the world agrees with you.
I think the world will be all
Here they are talking about the center of the world, and later the center is not going to hold for Reggie. So I think it's interesting that he's talking about the centers of things. And she's fulfilled her promise to her mother to kiss him there.
We shall fight on the beaches. We shall fight on the landing grounds. We shall fight in the fields.
Churchill was very important to Ron. He would listen to Churchill's speeches. He had his caravan out here in the woods, out in the country. We shot this in a place called Burnham Beaches, which is not too far out of London, where lots of films that need woods head out there to shoot. It was a pre-shoot day, they call it. The very first thing we shot was this scene. That shot coming over the ridge and revealing the caravan was the very first shot we did in the film. And it was the very first time Ron and Reggie are together in a scene as far as our shooting schedule went. And it was covered in mud. It had been raining. We couldn't get the camera in the right spot. And we did a 2-shot of them that didn't really play, and all that's left of it is that shot of Reggie going in behind Ron. But luckily, it's after you've already seen them together a couple of times, so you're not looking for it here so much. But it is the first time you see them as far as our shooting went. So we were a little nervous after this day because it didn't quite go as smoothly as we had hoped. It just had us on edge. But we had done camera tests and all kinds of things, and we knew what we were doing. It was just that location was very unsuited.
Here, right? Get me stuff out of the car. Do something fucking useful. Good.
I'm homosexual, Francis.
Francis's relationship with Ron is much more honest in a way than her relationship with Reggie, where she's asking him if he likes being a gangster, and he says he's not a gangster. And she sits down with Ron, and Ron immediately tells her that he's homosexual and is very upfront about who he is and what he thinks. And he tells her that they're gangsters, we're going to rule London. So I think it's a very interesting thing. And it's the design of it is that he's honest with her, and Reggie's
Kray's main
not
rivals
honest
were
with her.
Richardsons of South London. They were called the Torture Gang.
For the benefits.
So here we are south of the river, the Richardson gang. Martin McCready here, and Paul Bettany in the background. It's Charlie Richardson and Eddie Richardson. And this is in the heart of the East End. We shot this in Bethnal Green in a bus garage. Very much like this shot, this kind of grand painting almost of this gang all arranged.
On whose behalf were you working on this side?
Had a lot of fun flooding the light in. Paul was in Knight's Tale with me years ago, and we've always been friends and never quite found a thing to work on together. And he was in London shooting The Avengers, and he had a day off, and I said, if you have a day off, come be Charlie Richardson. So all his scenes in the film we shot in one day. It was a lot of fun to be with Paul again and see him do his thing. He's very dapper. Caroline's got him looking very dapper there, as Charlie often was.
I don't know what you're on about, Charlie. I don't know what you're on about.
Say that name. Say it!
Buzzing.
Objection, Your Honour. My client is an upstanding citizen.
Objection overruled on the grounds it's boring.
Oh, well, fuck him.
This is George Cornell, who figures very large in Ron Kray's life later on. But that's our first look at him. It's Shane Atwell, a very fine actor. The lemon sherbets here that you see Reggie and Francis discuss at the beginning when he first meets her, he's buying her a pack of lemon sherbets. The Richardsons, they're not trying to kill him here, they're just trying to warn him. It's almost the identical stunt gag that I used in Payback when Mel Gibson gets hit by the chows.
Alexander might have been great, but he would agree.
No?
The song you're hearing is called Watermelon Man, another big 60s instrumental track.
Deeply impressed by them
It was a lot of fun because we got the 60s alive with these tracks, but they also serve as score as well, complementing Carter's score. They're not thematic, other than they're 60s, so they have a 60s thematic. We only had time to do one take here on this van coming through the wall. There's a couple of problems with it. I'm not going to say what they were, but we had to live with them.
Where's my Ratsina?
The Richardsons sent George Cornell to call for a truce. All they were saying...
This is E. Polici's Cafe, also in the heart of the East End. It's run by Nevio and Anna Polici, their brother and sister, children of the original owner. Or the original owner is because this place has been here for 100 years, basically. And the Krays themselves used to come for breakfast when they would be rolling in from clubs after being out all night. And they probably ate breakfast in this place 1,000 times. The table they sat at was at the corner, not as cool looking cinematically, so we moved them over here to the side. But it was a lot of fun, very atmospheric to shoot in here, very cramped as far as how you'd normally shoot on a set. But we didn't have to change anything. These tables, the walls, it's all the way it was. All we had to do was there was a cappuccino machine, and we took out the new cappuccino machine, put in an old cappuccino machine, and we were off and running.
Well, no. Right, you get him out of it. Go on, fuck off. 1 hour. We'll be with you.
Bye-bye. Fuck off, John. Here's a door. Go on. Take that dead fox with you. Go on.
Get out, you prick.
I'll fucking liberty.
But, darling, please can I have another...
I very much like this split screen shot of the boys. We tried to do them casually, so they're sitting here together, but they're not interacting really with each other, except for when Ron takes the gun out and Reggie acknowledges him then, but otherwise Ron's eating and Reggie's looking at the paper.
It's not my fault. She can't. We're having a drink. Forget it. I just walked in.
This is the Pig and Whistle. This is the fight between the Richardsons and Reggie and Ron. And we shot this in Wapping, which is in East London, but down by the river, down by where the docks were. This area was heavily bombed during the war, but this pub stayed there. The actual name of the pub is Turner's Old Star, and the painter Turner owned the pub. And he had installed one of his mistresses as the landlord. And it was close again to the river and the water where he painted. And Dick Pope, the DP, had shot the film Mr. Turner before he shot Legend. And so I think that's part of the inspiration maybe for the daylight coming through the windows, is that he had shot Turner. We're in Turner's pub, and we got a little light thing going on there.
Rich, this lot of fucking nonsense to a man. They're fucking nonsense. Get out of your fucking way. Go on, get up. Go on, fuck off. Call yourself a...
What I like about this fight is Ron seems just crazy here. But in fact, what they've done is the two of them have come in and they've done their surveillance of the place. They now know how many guys they're up against, what situation they're dealing with. Ron is apparently going to leave, but in fact, there's another door around the corner. He's going to basically run around the whole place and come in through the door that's to the right.
He's just genuinely disappointed with you, that's all. Look at that. Full of iron, that is.
So now Reggie just needs to buy enough time for Ron to get back in there so he can come up behind these guys and they can deal with them. So in fact, what looks a little haphazard to these guys, the Richardson gang, and they think they've got the advantage. In fact, Reggie and Ron have turned the table and got a situation that they want, which is Ron coming in from behind and Reggie dealing with the guys from this side.
Yeah? I fucked the fucking lot of you as well. What do you think of that, eh? You like that?
It also let us shoot it in a way that was manageable because we could keep Reggie fighting down at his end of the bar, and we could keep Ron fighting down at his end of the bar so we could shoot away from them and not have to deal with them so much in the same frame.
I love this one. Paranoid schizophrenic. He walks in.
So this is them fighting together. And there was always, everyone talked about the Krays, how when they fought together, they could defeat an army, is what they used to say. Very in sync, and their fighting styles are very different. Reggie's a boxer, and a very well-trained boxer, a counter-puncher, and Ron, as you see, is whatever it takes. He just steams in. What they used to say about Ron was you'd have to kill him to stop him. And he would happily get hit 3 times to land 1 shot. The way they fight and their style of violence is character-driven as well. And in the arc of the violence, the way the film presents violence, this is a little more acceptable in movie terms as far as we're rooting for them, we don't like the other gang, and they're outnumbered. So you're immediately on their side. And the idea was to strip that away as we go along through the film and have it be less and less fun until by the last half hour, there's nothing fun at all about it. Charlie Richardson was arrested on the day of the World Cup final that England won on a controversial goal. So we thought it would be fun to include that. They're playing West Germany there. And forever after that, whenever the Germans came to play the English, the crowd would chant 2 world wars and 1 World Cup, which I think is a very clever kind of soccer chant.
And assault. London was an open city, and the Krays moved in.
This is Royal Albert Hall. In the background there, it's a place in London called Kensington Gore near Hyde Park. And that's where Leslie Payne had his offices, the Imperial Development Corporation, which was a big front. Here's Leslie Payne here, played by David Thewlis. That was a motion control shot. If the camera's moving and you're seeing both brothers, we'd have to get an enormous rig. It's computerized, and we'd do one move in with one brother sat there and the actor playing Stephen DeFay. And then we do another shot with just Ron sat there leading the camera in. And it was very time-consuming. It took a half a day just to get that walk in, which is it's an elegant shot, but very time-consuming. So we had to really pick our moments when we were going to use them.
My friends and I would like to purchase it from you. We have the contracts ready for your signature.
Ruling London involved intelligence and intimidation.
It's not for sale.
This is a true story, how they shook this guy down. He was a well-to-do posh, as they say, guy who owned a casino. They forced him to sell it to them under the threat of violence. He couldn't go to the police, really, because it was not an option, because they were often as crooked as these guys were.
Suspicious of him, afraid his scams were the opposite of what a gangster should be.
Consider Las Vegas. Right. It's all legal, all run by the mafia. Soon.
This is the Carpenter's Arms, this pub, which was their local hangout. And they own the pub for a while, and they do a lot of business out of here. Again, we've tucked Ron up in that end of the pub, and we've got Reggie over here on this, and they can interact and look at each other without having to do split screens and all those sort of things. And in fact, the idea is that the camera was never aware that one actor was playing 2 parts. What I mean by that is we're not trying to be cute, panning from one brother to the other brother, so you're left wondering, how do we do that shot? And instead, we're shooting it like we would if we had 2 different actors playing the 2 different brothers.
What? You say hour a lot.
The way it's blocked out, when we're down on this end with Ron, we're shooting Ron, and when we're looking back the other way, we're showing Reggie, and it's a very natural way to do it. And again, if the camera's not aware, hopefully the audience isn't aware. And that's besides Tom, really breathing life into these 2 different guys. We're helped a lot by the fact that they didn't look alike, the 2 brothers, especially as they grew older. When they were young, teenagers, they looked very much alike. And as they grew older, partly because of the paranoid schizophrenia, changed the way Ron's face was. Ron wore glasses, their hairlines were different. So it helps us out a lot.
That's the plan.
Well, I'm glad we could have this meeting. Mr. Lancey has taken an interest in the Colony Sporting Club. He has his casino people there right now.
This is a meeting that took place between the Krays and Angelo Bruno, who was the head of the Philadelphia mob.
Really?
Obviously played by Chaz Palminteri.
Well, you see, we own Las Vegas.
And the Americans, what happened was when the casinos in Havana shut down after the revolution, the American mob had to find new places for their casinos. And Las Vegas was up and running. But what had happened was the gaming laws had just been changed in England. And it made for a very fertile place for these casinos to want to move into. And they had bought a casino called the Colony Club in London and needed someone to help them run it, and the logistics of the Atlantic Ocean being in the way. And they came to the Krays, and that's how it started. Angelo Bruno was known as the Gentle Don, and he was a mediator between the families when there was mob wars and things like that. But he came to an untimely, violent end in 1980. He was shotgunned out in front of his house. In fact, by the man sitting on the couch with him when you see him over there, Tony Caponegro, who was his consigliere, played by Alex Giannini, who died recently, so God rest him.
Please. Bearer bonds. Free money. 100 grand in negotiation.
We shot this like a poker game, kind of.
Bank of Montreal.
They're trying to bluff each other. Reggie doesn't really know what he's talking about as far as bearer bonds go. He's not giving that up, though. And we wanted to shoot it like guys sitting around a poker table, looking at each other and checking out the surroundings and trying to hedge their bets and bluff each other. And I thought that worked very well.
40. This works out, Reggie. I got a $2 million backlog of those shot holes. Does that sound like you're staying out of our way?
50-50, mate.
I like you, Reggie. 50-50 it is. Done. I'm glad we can make a deal.
Yeah.
Now, this feels right. Listen.
Here's another moment where Ron is upfront about his homosexuality, and which was a very brave thing in the 1960s. In England in the 1960s, it was illegal, and you could go to prison for it. And someone said to me, well, he could get away with it because he was a gangster. And I said, well, I think that's a world even more narrow to be out of the closet. And I was always taken by that with Ron, that he was very upfront. He wasn't going to pretend for anybody, not even the American mob.
So he said, who I bent up like a pretzel. I really fucking hurt him.
In this case, they want to be in business bad enough that Bruno's happy to let it slide and deal with these guys. But again, it was a very interesting thing with Ron, how upfront he was about how he was and what he thought and how he felt. And again, Reggie being the opposite, really. Reggie being able to be a chameleon when he needed to be.
Cheers, mate.
Here we are back at Francis's house, revealing again Reggie and that Continental that can't fit in the frame. It's just too big. The white walls can't even fit in the frame. And here they are getting ready for another date. We worked on that cigarette flick. It's one of the great cigarette smoking films of all time. You know, I know it's an issue and all those things, but it's cinematically, it's a great device. And it was such a part of that world that we felt we'd be lying about it if we didn't include it, all the smoke-filled clubs.
Joker, go and get in the cup.
Look around you, look down the block from you.
Come on, hurry up.
The lonely face.
So this is Esmeralda's Barn, which was their first major club and casino.
£2,000 a week.
If you're ever in London, it's located, it's torn down, but it's where the Berkeley Hotel is in London, which is in Knightsbridge.
Finally crossed the line between the old East End and the green pastures of the Golden West.
Celebrities flocked to this place. It was Shirley Bassey, you just saw that, Sonny Liston.
The high rollers loved rubbing.
Sonny Liston, who once said that the only man who ever scared him was Reggie Kray.
Aristocrats and criminals.
Not in the ring, obviously, but he gave him a ride home one night, and Reggie was a notoriously bad driver and wouldn't pay attention to the road and the cars around him. And he gave him a ride back to his hotel from the club. And Sonny said that that was the only time he was ever afraid of somebody.
With roulette wheels, a stunning recipe for success. Ron was the odd man out. His pills stabilized him, but they'd never cure him.
Ron famously brought a donkey into the casino.
And he yearned for Reggie.
Sort of let everyone know what he thought of all of them.
As soon as you turn your...
He went to these clubs, but he was much more attracted to the gangster side of things, whereas Reggie straddled this gangster clubland world where he's a club owner and involved in, well, let's put it this way, a nightclub is a place where a lot of things can be learned, and it's an epicenter for a lot of things going on, and criminals and celebrities and people with a lot of money and all mixing, and it's a place where a lot of, if you think of the mob as a kind of army, it's a place where a lot of intelligence can be learned. It would be like a cafe in Vienna during the Cold War. You could learn a lot of things that would take you off in different business directions.
This is where you want me.
I should mention Tom didn't want to dance because he didn't think he would look good dancing.
This is where you want me.
We had a lot of fun with it, though, just trying to convince him that it was just a little slow dance. So if you wanted to get him to be in a film, don't have it have a lot of dance numbers, I think is the key thing. Here's the prison. This is out in Kingston. I really like this idea that he strips away all the jewelry that he has on. Cufflinks and tie pins and watches because he's going into jail now, and he'll pick them up when he comes back out. Also, probably the guards will steal that stuff. So it's a very subtle way of shedding one skin.
Hey.
He's about to take on another skin.
You look after your sister while I'm away. Go on, Rich. Yeah? Yeah. Good lad.
You'll see that on the cut as well. He's in this very sharp suit. And the next time you see him as he rounds the corner and we head in, here's a more Lincoln Continental that won't fit in the frame. But he's shed the skin, so now he's in his prison outfit. I don't know why I really like these jackets. I've never wanted anything from the costumes of a film before, but I thought I'd like to have a jacket like that, but I didn't get one. So I'll have to live with that.
You're nothing in here.
This is all done in one shot, this beat down of Reggie. Tim Faraday's the head screw, as they call him, and we were very keen to get that in one shot. My sound designer, Dominic Gibbs, did a great job with the voices behind the doors to give life to a lot of prisoners who we don't see. So they worked very hard. A lot of those voices are Dominic. He was very good at telling a little story there off screen.
That's more like it, Reggie, please. Hey, hey, bit of respect. That was it.
So the idea with Reggie was only Reggie Kray is going to beat Reggie Kray. No one else is going to beat Reggie Kray. I mean, he might get a beat down like you've just seen, but his spirit is such that even though it's a criminal spirit, it's unsinkable in a way. And that's what this scene was about, that you can't keep a good gangster down, literally, as he kind of scrapes himself up here and turns the tables on these guys, or on this guy, I should say.
Oh, good boy. Here he is, look. Look at this. Reggie Kray, begging for some water.
We talked through a lot of scenarios with the other guards come back, and he'd have to fight them through the bars, and as they came to rescue their comrade here who's locked up. But at the end, we decided it was a lot stronger if he just fought one of them. And that's the idea behind that scene. Here's another scene with Francis and Ron. And in a way, they talk philosophy sometimes when they meet. They talk on a different level than the regular world. So you see a bit of that when they first meet. But here he's telling Francis she's a ghost. And she's become a ghost. And that was a thought of her that I had when I was first researching it. She seemed like the ghost that haunted the story, and she was very elusive in a way, trying to learn anything about her. And I wanted to get that in with this line. And it pays off at the end, bookends the scene at the end, and we'll talk about that when we get to it, the end scene between Francis and Ron.
Look, listen.
No, what?
No, please, just for a moment, just listen. Gambling clubs are legally obliged to pay winnings on the spot.
So here we are in the Double R Club.
Pay their debts on the spot as well.
Ron's in one of his double-breasted suits. Reggie's never in a double-breasted suit.
That's your problem.
Caroline Harris had found an interesting fact about Ron, that when he went to his tailor to have a suit made once, he brought a picture of Al Capone in a double-breasted suit. And he gave it to the tailor and said, "This is how I want to look. I want to look like Al Capone." And so that was the inspiration for these double-breasted suits, which also filled Tom out in a way and added weight to him. Tom also had the ability to, with his posture, to add weight to himself by how he held himself and how he held his shoulders. You'll see his shoulders as Ron are different than Reggie's shoulders.
The utopia is the Greek word for nowhere. For £50,000, I can make that somewhere. I can turn it into a place where people will smile at me and children will dance.
I will smile for you, Ron. I will smile for you if you tell me...
I really like this scene. We rehearsed it several times, and it was very kind of flat when we rehearsed it. And what we realized was that it was because it didn't get heated enough. And we started working on making it more and more heated until we got to this point where they're yelling at each other. And at first, the scene was written as a conversation, really, a tense conversation, but it was a conversation. And once it became this shouting match almost, it took on a life that really helped it, I think.
All right, he's fucking gone, ain't he? So you work for me, Ron Kray. So you will trot along down to the fucking bank.
We shot it with two cameras running at the same time on both the actors so that we could cut it. It was the only way to do it and have them be able to go at it like that. Dick Pope did a very good job lighting both sides, which is very tricky.
Well, that is fucking stupid as well, because you fucking...
What Payne doesn't know here is he's kind of sealed his fate. He's crossed Ron. Ron's never going to forget it, and his card is marked, as they say. Here we are in the prison. That baby you hear crying is Ben Meachin's baby, who's one of the sound designers. As only a sound designer can do, his kid started to cry, and he ran and got a tape recorder to get a little of it. I'm sure he then settled him down and got him sorted out, but the baby crying is Ben's baby.
Tell you not to come.
I missed you.
Yeah. Frank, you don't want you to come in and see me like this, you understand?
I really find Emily arresting in this scene. Tom's fantastic in the film, and everyone thinks so. And Emily has to appear, she has to hold her own
You know what, when I get out...
and really go toe-to-toe with both Tom as Reggie and Tom as Ron, and I think she does a really fine job. I didn't really know Emily, and I was auditioning people for the part, and I thought to myself, I'll know her when she walks in the door. I'll know Frances when she comes in. When Emily came in to meet, as she sat down, I already thought to myself, this is her. You know, just waiting for her to confirm it. She does a really fine job.
I don't want a life like this. Just waiting while you're in prison.
No. Frankie, it won't happen again.
Can you be sure?
Because I know, because I promise you it won't.
He's back to lying to her here. And he knows it. He knows he's not going to stop being a gangster. He knows it is going to happen again. He's just telling her what she wants to hear. And the problem is things are always going wrong for them, even when it should be that they're going right. You know, he's grown up poor in the East End, and he's found a way out, and it involves being a gangster, which he's very good at. He's very smart, and he's very cunning. And what do you do when your great talent in life is being a criminal? And it's his nature, and he wants to follow it. And in a way, Frances wants him to deny that. And that's the root of the problem, really, between them. I really think when she says, I love you to him here, she's magnificent. And she catches him off guard. His reaction is great. But it's because of the way she presents it to him.
I think it can protect people.
What?
Love.
I like him. Yeah, you got something about him, haven't you?
Do you know what I reckon it is?
What?
I think it's his hips.
Yeah. I want to blow.
There's a little bit of while the cat's away, the mice will play here. So Reggie's locked away in prison. And while he is, Ron's on the loose. There's no one there to keep him in check. I should have mentioned Taron here, Taron Egerton, who's, of course, the star of Kingsman. He's done a film called Eddie the Eagle about the great British ski jumper who couldn't ski jump, but that didn't deter him. So hopefully You guys are all familiar with Taron, and we'll be getting more familiar with him. And we were lucky to have him.
Give it a fucking blow.
So I had the stand-up routine that Ron does in the club that alienates everybody, and I had a lot of ideas of how to do it. When I was prepping, I would meet with Tom now and then. And one of the first meetings we had was in Richmond Park, which is outside of London, which is a great park. If you're ever there, you got to get out to Richmond Park. And it was very atmospheric, and there was fog, and there's deer in Richmond Park, free-roaming deer, herds of deer. And you could see in the gloom of the fog these deer looming in and out, and we were walking Tom's dogs. And Tom was talking about Ron, and he said something very interesting to me, as he said, I think he's a smart guy. He knows how many C's there are in the word Carpaccio. That's all he said. Of course, I should stop and mention that trip ended with a sausage at a sausage stand in Richmond Park. But anyways, that stuck in my head that Ron knew how many C's there were in the word Carpaccio. And when I was working on this scene one day, I thought that was a good way to get into his insult to the crowd. So that's where when he starts on about Carpaccio here and how many C's there are, it was that conversation that led to this moment. And it's a word, cunt is a word that the British use very freely. It's not a word the Americans use very much, if at all, but it's very freely used in London and can mean all kinds of different things. What he's trying to do there is ruin the club because he's sick of the club. He's sick of Reggie being a straight club owner, and he's had it with all these people, and he's undermining it.
You're free? What are you doing throwing stones at the window?
They're not stones. These lemon sherbets.
So this is the Romeo and Juliet, gangster Romeo and Juliet scene. Reggie has gotten out of prison.
Why don't you ring the bell?
He has been smart enough to go get some lemon sherbets for Francis. If you ever get a chance to get some lemon sherbets, they're very good. It's lemon candy on the outside and then a kind of fizzy lemon surprise in the middle, which is why she tells him not to chew them. You gotta be patient and work your way to the middle. It's kind of like a Tootsie Pop in a way. So there are people that wait to get to the middle of the Tootsie Pop, and there's people that don't wait. And Reggie's the guy who doesn't wait.
You cheeky bugger.
Be careful.
Here he is. He has to climb the drain pipe. That's Jacob Tamuri, Tom's very capable stunt stand-in, body double. I'll talk more about Jacob later on, but he's an unsung hero in a way of the film.
So it's like, go and open it.
And I think this is the biggest lie Reggie tells to Frances in the whole movie, when she says, we'll live free and above board, and he swears to her that they will. And it's just a great big lie. And it kind of seals their fate in a way, because he has no intention of ever going straight. And he thinks he can just bend her to his life and doesn't know that that's never going to happen. She, on the other hand, thinks she can bend him to how she wants him to be, and that's never going to happen either. And it's a little bit of a Greek tragedy. So here we are back in the club, which is now devoid of patrons. These are Ronnie's cockerels, they were called. Caroline designed their cockerel outfits there. You'll see with the Ronnie's roosters in a way.
Relations department, and we've got Joseph Gerber.
And this is what the club's been reduced to.
You read lips. What's his side? What's his side, Les?
I'm struggling, I think he's saying something.
This is Charlie Palmer Rothwell, who's playing Leslie Holt, who's a very interesting character, a real-life character that I'll talk more about later on.
Nice, isn't it?
The hula hoop is a tribute to the 60s, obviously.
Hey, he's putting a little bit of timber, isn't he?
He's going to be very, very upset.
Did I miss something?
But here's Reggie. He's arrived. He has no He knows things are in trouble at the club. He doesn't know they've gotten this bad.
You didn't tell me that it was this.
And this really takes us into the next big fight sequence in the film. The first sequence was seeing the brothers fight together, and this is a sequence of them fighting each other. We rehearsed this a lot. We wanted to know exactly what we were going to be doing fight-wise, and again, wanting it to reveal character and have it not just be a fight. So really, what Ron hasn't seen his brother. He wants to be reunited with him. Francis is in the way. It's a love triangle in a lot of ways. And in some respects, it was, I'm going to fight you to get you alone to myself. So he uses it that way. But what I should talk about a little bit is Ron and Reggie in scenes together. And in a way, it was very tricky for Tom. It's the trickiest thing in the whole film. It's much trickier than any of the visual effects, because he's constantly acting opposite an actor who's not there. So he has there's no energy between the actors. There's no ability to improv off each other and all those great things actors can do. When we get into these shots, his body double was Jacob to Murray, his stuntman. So that'll be Jacob there as someone to at least have an eye line with. But what we would do is Tom would rehearse in the morning with me, and he'd play Reggie, and I'd read Ron. And anything that was going to be done, any improvs, anything we were going to do with the lines, we had to do it very first thing in the morning, just the two of us, basically. And we would then record Ron's dialogue so we could play it back in Reggie's ear through an earpiece, usually on the ear that you couldn't see, but if we saw it, we had to digitally paint it out. And then Jacob would have to learn and mouth all the dialogue, so when we're over the shoulder on him, like we are here, if his mouth is moving, it has to match so we can make that cut. So it was really the trickiest thing, because Tom had to decide what Ron's physical reactions were going to be, even pointing or waving his cigar, and then teach them to Jacob so that Jacob could reproduce them before Tom did them. So it was a mind bender, really, for an actor. So he would play Reggie, determine what Ron's reactions were going to be physically, teach those to Jacob, and then recreate what Jacob did on the over-the-shoulders and things like that.
You, right? I'm a fucking disgrace.
So here's a split screen coming up. I mean, that's Jacob, actually, but right there's our split screen.
Yeah.
So we shoot those with one guy and then the other guy. Karen in the background is in the shot with Reggie, but he's not in the shot with Ron. And then our fight starts. And now, the idea was it's slap boxing. They are mad at each other, they want to hurt each other, but they know they're brothers. And it's a governor on the fight, in a way. It's a regulator on the fight, because no matter how mad you get, deep down inside, you know it's your brother that you're fighting, and you don't want to kill him. So the slap boxing seemed a very good way to get things started, although we quickly go into punches here. And we're just very clever about how we do things, and when we show two faces and when we don't show two faces. Obviously, here we can use Jacob, there we can use Jacob. And here we see both brothers, and so that's a face replacement in the back. That's Jacob walking away, but we've put Tom's face on.
Never mess with a man's jewels, mate.
In a couple of the slaps, when it's a two-shot, we've had to do face replacements. And there's only one other place we did a face replacement in the film, but we knew we had to do them during the fight, and they're expensive and they're very tricky to do. And so we knew during this fight it was the only time we would have face replacements, like there's one right here. As we come into this part of the fight, we came up with this idea. Julian Spencer, who's our fight coordinator, and Tom actually came up with this idea of wrapping Ron's jacket around his face, which obviously helps us a lot because we're only looking at one brother during the bottle smash. And we could use Jacob. And we get away with it because we've seen their faces together so much during the fight that by the time we reach that point, it doesn't feel like we're being cheap in a way, trying to hide anything, because you've seen it all. So it was a good device, I think, a way for him to control his brother and finish the fight off.
can open, so God help you.
And the payoff to this fight to me is this moment between the brothers. And in a weird sort of way, Ronnie's gotten what he wanted. He wanted to get his brother to himself. And he's managed to drive Francis away. And we're left with this moment between them where in his most lucid moment, Ron, where he's trying to tell his brother what he's going through and that he himself knows that he's not normal or he's not the way he used to be before his paranoid schizophrenia kind of took over, and they talk about him when he was on his pills and when he was off his pills and his different sort of behavior. I really thought this is what makes the fight work, is that we end up down here and this tender moment evolves out of this violence that is part of who they are. It leaves Ron where he wants to be with his brother in his arms, basically, and Reggie where he doesn't want to be, sort of beholden to his brother and his illness and separated from Francis. So now he's got to go seek her out. This is in Shoreditch. We created this market. Those storefronts were all people's houses. They used to be storefronts that had all been converted to houses, flats. And we had to convert them back to the way they used to be 50 years ago, which is kind of funny. Tom Conroy doing a lot of work on the fronts of all those places and then bringing in the carts and the marketplace. So that was a fun thing to do. And Shoreditch is right down in the heart of London.
What about Ron?
He's not exactly a good bit, is he?
Well, I mean, he's not exactly a bad bit either, you know.
It's awful to me.
Yeah, he was. But, you know, that's Ron. If he doesn't take his tablets,
I really like this little moment where Reggie imitates Ron. It's a very kind of in-joke in a way. It's a very twisted... Tom is imitating his own performance of Ron, and Reggie's imitating Ron, and I just find it very amusing.
I'm very sorry. He is sorry. I'm sorry. We're all sorry. But, you know, that's what happens sometimes. Families are stupid, aren't they? You know, they fight. You know, they make up.
And here he is again. She's trying to get away from him. She says, "I don't care if you forget me." And deep down knows it's never going to work out. And this is a moth drawn to a flame, and a flame that can't stop being a flame. He talks her back into it again. He's always talking her into staying with him in a way, almost right from the start. Almost from the first time he meets him, he's constantly talking her into hanging around a little longer. And she hangs around a little too long and pays the price for it.
Building a utopian city in Nigeria.
Some are born to be Ronnie Kray, and some have Ronnie Kray.
This line here of Chris's, some were born to be Ronnie Kray, and some were have Ronnie Kray thrust upon them, is stolen from Malvolio in 12th Night, where he says some are born great, some achieve greatness, and some have greatness thrust upon them. And Chris saw Nipper as a bit of a Malvolio character, and so that's where that came from. But here's Lord Boothby, and this is all based on truth. You can Google Lord Boothby, Leslie Holt, and Ron, and you'll find this photograph of the three of them in real life sat on this couch, or a couch very similar. Tom Conroy's done a great job of recreating that parlor at Lord Boothby's flat. And Lord Boothby was an aristocrat and a member of the House of Lords, and he was gay and, well, bisexual. And Ron used that. He hooked into that with Lord Boothby, and mostly to be friends with him in a way. They had an odd sort of friendship. Boothby was afraid of Ron on some level, but I think that was part of the attraction as well. And Ron would throw these parties at his flat, Cedar Court, and Boothby would go to him.
Harry, all alone. No need to be. Plenty of fruit in the tree.
Another member of Parliament, Tom Dryburgh, would also go. And this is where the sort of lowest end of London and the highest end of London mingled, and with Ron as the kind of impresario.
Fucking look at me.
Good Lord. That's Bob Boothby.
So this is Chequers. This is where the Prime Minister lives when he's outside of London.
Or is he going to have trouble explaining this?
This is Kevin McNally and Tim Woodward. Kevin McNally playing Harold Wilson, the Prime Minister. And when he came in to meet with me, he had a very funny story about how he was going to play Harold Wilson in a play and the director had fallen out with him, and he lost the job. And so now here was his second chance to play Harold Wilson. And it was a great story. I mean, I thought to myself immediately, you've got to have this part, because that's some good revenge there.
Under surveillance. The Krays, the photographs were taken in Ronald Kray's flat. Orgies aside, tracking fraud, protection...
So really the issue here is that the government has collapsed a few years earlier because of the Profumo scandal with call girls and all these things. And so this thing with Lord Boothby is they're now thinking they've got another huge sex scandal on their hands. And that's what ended up saving the day for the Krays. And as much trouble as Ron got them into, he got them out of it by his association with Lord Boothby, for a time at least.
It's nice, that is. Oh, what do you want for Christmas?
I don't know.
This is a Soho Street. This is Gerrard Street in London, is what it's supposed to be. We've recreated. And that's where the club, the Hideaway Club, was. And that's now part of Chinatown. But if you're ever on Gerrard Street, in Chinatown, there's a restaurant called Plum Valley, which is still there. It's the front of it's all painted black. And that's this Hideaway, the club that Reggie took on as his next big club after Esmeralda's Barn.
So I took you out of here.
And again, he's lying to her here. Another lie. He's going to go straight, and we're going to have this club.
Yeah.
It starts to snow. We had a whole motif with snow that just became too difficult to shoot. This was the first night of it. And it was going to pay off at the end of the film. And after this first night of snow and soap suds coming down and having to do it over and over again, I knew I didn't have the time to really do it the way I wanted to do it, so I took it out. But it comes into play, you'll see later on. So here's another club. They're shaking the owner down. Hugh McCowan was his name. Kind of a very brave guy. He ended up testifying against them to no avail.
A dirty deal for a clean life. Ron was terrified of Reggie leaving him behind. He sent Mad Teddy round to kill the deal.
Listen, gentlemen, I have spoken with Reggie.
I can't look at you, darling. I'm going to get lost.
The location we used is the Café du Paris, which is off Piccadilly Circus, and not far from the actual location, so if you're ever there, you'll see it.
Please, I have customers.
That's it. Come on.
I have customers.
This was a fun scene to shoot. At first, we had fake champagne bottles, and when they fell over on the bar, they shattered into 1,000 pieces, and we very quickly thought that's not how a real bottle would react. So we put in the real bottles and kept the fake glasses. Those scenes are always kind of fun to shoot, and massive cleanup afterwards to reset to shoot another take.
You made a promise to me.
And it still stands. I'm fucking innocent. I'm sorry. I'm not. I don't mean to swear at you, right? I really want you to marry me. Please.
If you're innocent and...
Not to go on, but Reggie lying again, Frances giving him finally an ultimatum. In her naive way, being found innocent is the same as being not guilty. So that's a mistake she makes. Here's Soulful Strut starting, which is a Young Holt Unlimited tune, another big instrumental hit from the 60s. What saved the day was there was a photo of Ron. It wasn't an orgy photo, but it was just the simple photo of Ron and Lord Boothby sat together, which showed that a member of the House of Lords was cavorting with a gangster. And that would have been enough to make a lot of trouble. So that's the picture that they had to keep out of the papers, and which was kept out of the papers. And Prime Minister Wilson had a fixer himself, his own Leslie Payne, as it were, and that was Arnold Goodman here, who took care of a lot of things for the government. And he squashed the story with the Sunday Mirror and got them to apologize and give Lord Boothby an enormous libel settlement. I think it was £45,000, which in today's money would probably be about $400,000 or $500,000.
The government would have to drop its case or face the consequences. It was this that made the Krays the untouchables of London crime.
New information cast.
It was actually this whole cover-up to keep the government clean, which got them off their extortion trial. And they were described as untouchable by Parliament, the press, and the police, at least until Ron murdered George Cornell. That started things up again. So this is Duffy, great Duffy, who plays Timmy Euro, is a member of their firm who I met named Chris Lombriano, who told me a lot of different stories about them. And he told me that Timmy Euro was Reggie's favorite singer, and he would book her into all his clubs. And so Duffy very graciously agreed to recreate Timmy for us in the film. I should point out this is a Las Vegas 60s that the Krays live in, Clubland 60s. It's not a Beatles 60s, so it's in sort of all its glory here in the club with the DJs, they call them dinner jackets, and everyone, the women all done up to the nines. This is Caroline Harris at her best with all her scrutiny and all her keeping everything looking just as it should. Francis there, caught between Ron and Reg again. A little red light over Nipper's head. Took about 3 hours to light once Dick Pope realized he needed a red light back there, which he did. And he also added that little sign, Young Models Upstairs, based on some experience of his own, I think, in 1972. But he'd speak better to that than I can. No, but he had a great eye for detail, and he would always throw things like that in there. I like that little moment, that little ad-lib moment with the dancer trying to dance with Nipper. But Nipper don't dance, as they say. Nipper don't surf.
So why are you here then?
So here's this confrontation between them. And I think, Nipper was, he grew up poor, and he boxed when he was young. He grew up during the war like they did. And to him, it was no excuse. That all those things were not an excuse to turn into a gangster, because he had experienced the exact same thing and ended up a policeman, and a very honest and worthy policeman, uncorruptible and all those things.
Did turn you into handing your own over at the bar, innit?
Chris always said, he said to me one day, "What kind of dog am I? I want to be a dog in this film. What kind of dog am I?" And I said, "Well, you're a bloodhound." And he was like, "Right, I got it. I'm a bloodhound." And it was a very funny sort of take by an actor on a character. So this was also a face replacement. We didn't have time to do a split screen that day, so we had to do a face replacement on Ron there through the camera, and worked very hard on it.
Explain. This is Scotland Yard. And this investigation will...
This is a notorious story about this photo taken of Nipper in the club. And lots of people say it did happen, and lots of people say it didn't happen. I could never figure out whether it had or not, but it was a lot more fun to shoot it than not shoot it. So we have this moment with Nipper being undone by them with this photograph. Again, a cup of tea figuring in, as it does often in the film. Here we are at St. Anne's Church in Limehouse, and Limehouse is right in the heart of the East End also. It's a little bit in Jack the Ripper country, Limehouse. The Kray's grandmother, in fact, remembered as a girl hearing the cries in the streets that another body had been found, another victim of Jack the Ripper. So I think it was very interesting that there's only one degree of separation from that time, the Jack the Ripper time of the East End, to this time in the East End, with the Kray's grandmother having been alive during the Jack the Ripper time.
I see myself, see what I could be.
This was you see these pimples on Tom's neck as Ron, and since we shot him the same day, they both had the same pimples on their neck. It's so strange how the human eye works, and your eye immediately goes to those things. What we did was we painted them out on Reggie. We keep pimples off Reggie's neck, and we leave them on Ron's, maybe unfairly to Ron, but that's the way it is. Reggie's looking good, and Ron, not so much.
Why are you not inside yet?
Are you absolutely sure you want to go through
Mum,
with this?
please don't start us again. It's all right, thanks.
Here is Frances kind of crossing her Rubicon, as Caesar once did, and the Rubicon is her mum.
Do you even know what love is from?
Here in her black dress of mourning, giving her one last chance to get away.
He's a witness.
On a wedding day, there should always be someone who questions you. And this is her one last chance to get out of this marriage that's going to lead to her death, basically. And she's determined. She loves him. She's also determined, I think, to fly in the face of her mom. And I like this little moment. It's a very 50s kind of movie moment of let's walk into the future together, her and her brother, as they go under the camera. This was all based on a true events as far as Frances's mom wore black to the wedding. And Reggie took umbrage to it. Ron especially took umbrage to her not singing. And that's not a movie scene. That's a real scene that happened between them in the church, that he went over and told her to get her ass in gear and start singing, which she didn't. She's not afraid of a couple of gangsters.
Gracious God, accept our prayers for Francis and Reginald, that they may reap the harvest of the Spirit and reflect your glory.
We're very keen to get enough extras to fill this church.
Amen.
We had to move them around a lot and try to hide the fact that we had moved them around. So we got them over on the wing here and back on the other side. Again, the love triangle is going on with Ron, Reggie, and Francis. Her wedding dress, I think, is very beautiful. Frances had a very particular wedding dress, which was documented by David Bailey in their wedding photos. And Caroline felt that that should be left to Frances, that wedding dress. And so she didn't want to recreate it, but made her own elegant wedding dress for Emily to wear, separate from what Frances actually wore.
To go straight lasted 2 weeks.
2 ices. No milk.
In a normal story, their marriage would be the start of the story, really. And in fact, it dooms them in a way, because now they're so close to each other that he really can't hide what he's doing and his all-night hours and his gangsterism.
We started out near Marble Arch in West London, but we both missed the East End.
And I think they had been together for a couple of years, 3 or 4 years as a couple, from the time he first met her till they got married. But once they got married, the marriage only lasted 8 weeks before she left him.
And Clubland kept Reggie out until all hours. He enjoyed being a gangster, after all.
We heard that you were down at Regency the other night.
Carter's score here is very elegant as well, very simple, very thematic for her. And now we're back to Jack the Hat. And a couple of things about Jack the Hat. Some people, when they talk about Reggie killing him, portray him as a sort of innocent, but in fact, he was a pill pusher, he was an abuser of women, he kicked his girlfriend out of a moving car and broke her back on the street. So he was a very tricky guy and a bad guy. And again, sold pills and had to kick back part of the proceeds from that business to Reggie and the firm.
Here you go.
This is leading up to Reggie's killing of McVitie, which again was in many stories is described as completely random. And that never made sense to me because of the nature of it and the extreme violence of it. And I always thought he had to have a reason. And I'll get into that as we go along.
We'll get up, Jeff. Fuck off.
This is so kind of you. Sweet, isn't it?
Lovely, isn't it? Oh, hello.
It's okay.
This was Frances's lemon sherbet dress. She's actually a lemon sherbet herself here. And here's Jane Wood, is Violet Kray, the Kray's mom. And she never could measure up to Violet. And this is trying to get a sense of that. It's funny, this scene, I was under a lot of pressure to cut this scene out, and I could never figure out why, but I managed to keep it, which I was very happy about. In fact, I moved it. It was supposed to be while he was in prison, and I moved it to while he was away on business, and maybe that helped it to work. That actor's John McKenna, who's in the 1990 Kray film, and makes it into this one as Charlie Kray, the dad. So he's the link between the two films.
I left without saying goodbye. A sad victory. I'd never be good enough for their Reggie. He was Nipper's...
I like this shot a lot. She really stands out as this modern girl living in this kind of very hard East End neighborhood.
Where are you going?
She's not long for this world, really. She's going to get swallowed up by this whole thing.
And what I shared with Ron was needing pills to get through the day. Sleeping pills helped sometimes. Other pills helped other times. They were like a friend who held no...
Again, very interestingly, she had a similar problem to Ron, which they were both dependent on pills. And I thought it was interesting that Jack the Hat was a pill dealer. I tried very hard to see if there was a link between them, if he had ever sold her pills. And I could never find that link. And we have Frances in the mirror again there looking at herself, which goes on through the film.
Almost there.
All right.
Bit more.
Okay.
Okay. Ready?
Yes.
Ready?
Yes.
At this point, Reggie's sort of solution to her is kind of Sound of Music. How do you solve a problem like Maria? How do you solve a problem like Frances? Because the way his life is, he can't give her what she needs and what she wants, and can't be what she wants him to be, and really tries to buy her off with stuff. So he buys her a Spitfire, and in the accounts I heard about them, this actually happened. He bought her a car, and she didn't know how to drive, and he didn't teach her to drive, and this car basically sat in front of their apartment building, which is their actual building, that building, Cedar Court, where they lived. And it would sit out there unused and getting dirty and covered with dust, and felt very much a symbol of their marriage in a way.
There's an inherent threat in that one commanding syllable. It's the only word some need to hear.
What's that mean, the only word?
Well, you're like Ford.
This was a very involved split screen here. We have Reggie in the middle, and we've shot that separately, and everyone else to his left and his right we shot together because it was mostly a Ron scene. So we shot Ron first, and Ron interacting with David Thewlis, Leslie Payne, and the guys around him. And then Reggie and Charlie in the middle we sewed in later. So Reggie is performing that scene to 2 tennis balls. He's got a couple of head positions for David Thewlis, depending on where David Thewlis is, and one position for Ron. His reactions to the left and right of him are manufactured because there's no one there.
It'll keep you out of prison. I mean, none of us are getting any younger. You know, you need to leave all this behind. I mean, you know, you got to look to the future. You and that lovely young wife of yours.
See, the eye line's a little off there with David, and then he adjusts it into the correct eye line there right before he gets glassed in the head. But no one notices that because you're looking at Ron. But now that I've told you, you won't be able to take your eyes off that. In a way, Leslie comes between Reggie and Ron as well. There's the triangle between them that Ron resents because it keeps his brother away. And Leslie is more pushing them into legitimate businesses and club businesses, which Ron doesn't like because he's a gangster at heart and he wants to be a gangster and enjoys that end of things.
He knows too much about things. Things about us, Reggie. He knows too many things about us.
He knows too many things about us. Right, Albie, do you know things about us, mate? You know things, eh? About Ron, about me, about the...
The split screen here is, we had a lot of difficulty with. It was late at night, and we were at the end of a long shooting day when we did this shot. We had shot Ron first, because we had shot Ron out that day. We shot him over with Leslie, and now we shot him here. And we brought Reggie in to do his end of things, and we were having a lot of trouble lining up Reggie and Ron across from each other. And we realized it was because the bar was at different levels and their eyes weren't matching, even though all our mathematics were correct. So we had a kind of scary moment. Again, this wasn't too far into the shoot, and we had to sort of recalibrate and figure out what the problem was. And it was a height difference, and a height difference between Jacob and where his eyes sat in his head almost, and where Tom's did. So it's one of those things where you can plan and plan and plan, and when you actually get there, you had to sort of figure out the math of it all and make adjustments.
About Mr. Bruno?
Well, things are going well. We're very happy on my side of the pond.
Well, that's good. You know, we're very happy also.
So Angelo Bruno's come to London to warn Reggie about Ron and to warn him about something the mafia knows very well, and that's that you can't be in the newspapers. The best mafia is an anonymous mafia. Even in the United States, they had J. Edgar Hoover running around saying they didn't exist for a long time. So they don't like Ron being in the paper,
It's Mr. Lansky, Reg.
and they're worried about that.
He sees a lot of potential.
And it was the undoing of the Krays, in some ways, their notoriety.
Well, you know, maybe they could just sit down and meet each other, couldn't they? I mean, he could come across for a chat.
A chat? You guys cracked me up, really.
When Chaz came in to meet on the part, he didn't audition or anything like that. He's a well-established actor. You either want him or you don't. And he told me a funny I should interrupt myself here and say the Gallo brothers were very similar to the Krays. And Bob Dylan wrote a song called Joey about Joey Gallo. So you might want to check that out. But anyways, he says, what do you want me to do about Ron? And he says he can't. And Chaz, when he met with me, said this is how he should respond to Reggie saying, I can't do it. He's my brother. And it's a very casual, tossed off okay that you see him do right here. Like, hey, no problem, you know, but what he's really saying is we have a very serious problem, you and I. Now, Frances also has a very serious problem. She's very classically home alone playing solitaire while Reggie's out at his clubs. This is one of our few sets we built. I really love this set. Crispy and Salas, our set decorator, did a great job. It's a little bit of a things that fell off the back of trucks, if you will, almost like stolen property that Reggie's gotten at no cost, and they've stuffed the place with it.
I ain't finished with you yet.
Mr. Kray takes care
Now,
of
you
his
say
warehouse.
Kray one more time, and I'm gonna hit you. You understand?
Takes us here to George Cornell. He's Ron's doppelganger in a way. He's Ron's gangster that he's going to kill, and it's going to change his life, just like Jack the Hat is Reggie's doppelganger in a way. This is Farmelo's, the location. Very interesting, ready-to-shoot place in London.
It's English breakfast, eh?
You can tell by your face, Ted, what you think of it. It's a lovely box, isn't
No,
it?
it's not English breakfast, that's not, no. That's got pheromones in it, that's musky. That's a bit of magic, that is.
And the warehouse man here, the actor, is Stephen Lord. We sit down and we rehearse the scene, and it goes along. It's a little bit like the Leslie Payne scene earlier, where there was something wrong with it. It didn't quite work. And it wasn't the dialogue, but there was just something wrong with it. And as we rehearsed it, we realized that sort of hemming him in and getting him trapped back there would help the scene a lot. So you see he's surrounded by the boys here, and he's got a big box of tea off to his right, keeping him in. And that suddenly made things start to work. And then what was great was Tom then scooted in really close to him, even during the first take of shooting, and got right in there, right up on top of him almost. It was great watching Stephen roll with that. And it's kind of where you separate the men from the boys in a way with actors. He comes in so on top of him, and Steve just plays it, and he doesn't break. And he just plays that Ron Kray is now right in his face. And it really is what really makes the scene into something. And it gets us into these close-ups that I never wanted to leave, because once this happened, you just didn't want to be wide anymore. You wanted to be right in there, stuck on top of the two of them. And watching him have to deal with Ron beyond invading his personal space. So it's really what makes the scene in a way.
I will have George Cornell killed. All right.
I didn't say.
All right.
I didn't say anything about killing, Ron.
You fucking did. You fucking meant it. Look at you. You meant it with your eyes. Look at your eyes, eh? It's in your...
And Tom is fully inhabited here by, I don't know if Tom's inhabited by Ron or if Ron's inhabited by Tom. I remember we had the gangster Freddie Foreman came to visit set one day when we were shooting at Polici's, and I was speaking to him, and he knew him in the day. And Tom came all done up as Ron and snuck up behind Freddie and just said, "Hello, Freddie." And Freddie turned and almost passed out because he was so convinced that he was looking at Ron Kray from the grave. Funny thing about Freddie Foreman is he came to one of the early screenings, and after the screening, he came down to me, and here's the blind beggar on the corner, and he came down to me and said, the blind beggar wasn't on the corner like that, which he, of course, would have known because he had been there plenty of times. And it's one of those things of shooting is where the real blind beggar was, we couldn't control the traffic. It's out on Commercial Road in the East End, and we didn't have the budget to control the traffic, so we couldn't shoot there. So we shot here at this other pub called the Royal Oak and changed the sign to Blind Beggar.
Well, look what a cat dragged in.
I very much like this hit. It's all in one shot coming in, and There's no ceremony. There's no big confrontation between these two guys. Ron just walks in and shoots them. It seemed a very strong way to do it, and also to strip away some of the romanticism of it all and make it a very violent act.
You didn't say nothing.
There's Lorraine Stanley, who plays the blind beggar barmaid, who's a very famous character in the sort of legend of the Krays. And this is really the beginning of the end, because the powers that be can't ignore murder in the streets. So the kind of free pass they've gotten from being associated with Lord Boothby is being revoked now over this. I mean, Reggie manages to clean it up and intimidate witnesses and pay people to be quiet about it, but this marks the beginning of the end, really.
The blind beggar.
And this was a great scene. I really love this scene because it was a different scene in the script. And Ron came home much more kind of disturbed and catatonic over what he had done, and Reggie has to clean him up and put him to bed. And when I was driving to set that morning, I was reviewing the scene, and I thought something about this isn't right. Because Ron really wants to be a gangster, and now he's gotten his button. As the American gangsters would say, he's killed a man. I really felt like the reaction I had written wasn't right, that Ron would be much more down with what he had done, so to speak. And I got to set, and the first AD, Jack Ravenscroft, said to me, "Tom wants to know if you could come see him on the set. He wants to talk to you." And I went down to the set. And Tom, who almost always would have been in hair and makeup at that time, was on the location, on the set here. And he said, "You know, I was reading the scene this morning, and something's not right about it." And I immediately jumped in and said, "Yeah, no, I had the same thought." But we had no alternative scene, and so we both had come to the conclusion that Ron's attitude would be much different having come from killing Cornell. And we sat down on this couch that you see here, and we just worked it out and worked it out and worked it out, and we probably spent about 3 hours talking it through, which had producers running down to set and wondering what was going on and why haven't we started shooting yet, and we only have this set for the day. We got to get this big long scene shot in a day, but the scene wasn't right, and so we didn't want to shoot something that wasn't right. And I sat there with I got a bunch of script pages and flipped them over, and we were writing dialogue, and it was one of those, I always call them handwritten scenes, which are scenes that you end up writing on the day. And it's one of my favorite scenes in the film, and I was really happy with how it came out, and Tom was too, and we were very proud of this scene, which we kind of sat down and wrote.
Where's everybody gone?
Oh, Mum, it's late. It's late. I want him out of your hair.
Jane Wood, again, who plays his mom, we had to bring her down at a certain point because she really didn't have a line. She had only a couple of little lines in the original scene. And so I had to walk her through all her new lines and moments and serving cake and coming in and out of the room. And she was great. She was down to do it and rehearsed her and then brought the other actors in and rehearsed them. And spent an inordinate amount of time rehearsing and going through it all, but then everyone went off to hair and makeup. And when they came back, it just rattled off. It was so right, the whole thing. You always know a scene's right when the actors don't really need to spend a lot of time memorizing their lines, because the lines key each other and trip off each other in a way. That was this scene. So even though everyone got their lines 10 minutes before they shot them, no one dropped one or had trouble with one, and it was a lot of fun to shoot.
You should take that.
Another great set, one of our few sets really, but another great one Tom Conroy came up with.
Left the lads at work and have to clean up. So I'll say good night.
Night.
Teddy, you can do us a favour. Could you be useful? When you take his trousers off tonight and his shirt, can you burn them? Yeah, and check in with me.
Taron's very, very subtle and good here, I think. He's sort of thinking about things. One thing, he likes Ron very much, but Reggie's a different animal and makes him a little nervous.
Not really.
Not even Scotland Yard could ignore murder on the streets.
So now you see Nipper. He's now in Tintangel House, which is a different location. They moved out of Scotland Yard, which you see earlier, very dreary and dark. And this is a much more modern, for the 1960s, a much more modern facility. And he's got his good straight cops, and they're going after the Krays. And so the idea was the location is fresh and new, and brand new, and it's a different kind of policing that he's going to bring when it starts right here.
That was known as a safety point during the war, right? So if you could run to that lamppost, you...
So when I first met Tom, I sent him the script asking him to play Reggie. And I didn't really know whether I wanted him to play both. I didn't know if it was a good idea. I worried in movies where one actor plays twins, you can never get over it. It's a gimmick, and you can never forget that you're looking at one guy over and over again. So I didn't know if I wanted to go that route, but I knew I wanted him to play Reggie. And I gave him the script. I didn't give it to him, it was sent to him. I didn't know him, and we had dinner, him and Tim Bevan and I, the producer. And from the time we sat down, all Tom wanted to talk about was Ron. And all I wanted to talk about was Reggie. And it became very obvious that he wanted to play Ron and I wanted him to play Reggie. And at the end of the dinner, he kind of smiled and he said, look, I'll give you Reggie if you give me Ron. And I said, that's a deal. And I think neither of us knew what we had just signed on for. But in a way, Ron's a character, and Tom at heart is a character actor. And they're more interesting to play. And Reggie's more elusive. Reggie's a straight kind of movie star part as far as he looks great, he's well-groomed, he's cool, he doesn't say a lot generally. And Tom also said he had trouble finding Reggie's heart. And I agreed with that. Even when I was writing it, I had trouble. It wasn't trouble finding it, but it was that his heart was hidden. And Ron's heart, you understand, I've talked about it a little bit already, but he was who he was. What you saw is what you get. And Reggie's much more hidden, and his heart's, it's not an undiscovered country, but he's a guy who does what he should. He works from his head, and he does the right thing, or he does the right thing as far as his brother's concerned. He can't quite do the right thing as far as Francis is concerned because it goes against his nature too much. And he has this elusive heart. That was the trick for Tom, to try to find that heart. It was the undoing of Reggie in a way. It was a very proper thing to think about Reggie because it was his tragedy in a way.
What done it? All right?
Where are you going?
Home.
What about me mum?
Fuck your mum.
This is Lorraine Stanley, who plays the blind beggar barmaid. One thing I like about this scene is it's funny. It's this horrible moment of her coming face to face with a guy who might kill her. If she testifies against him, she's certainly putting her life in jeopardy. And at the same time, Ron's, as always, is funny.
Yeah, I'm sure.
I'm a big believer in that any scene can do multiple things. Any scene can be funny and scary and poignant and have pathos and have slapstick. All those things can exist, or several of them can exist in a scene at the same time. It always seems a shame when a scene is just one thing. Ron he's not a comedian, but there's a comic nature to his character that Tom maintains all the way through the film. It doesn't come and go when it suits the film. So I very much appreciate that about Ron and about the way Tom plays him. It's a little bit like the clown in a tragedy, the Pagliacci kind of laugh, clown, laugh. And there's a truth in the humor that is very important.
Discipline.
No.
Give her a pink wafer.
I really like this walk between them. It says a lot without any dialogue. Things are not going well here.
What did you tell her?
Of course, when Francis says, I wish I could make you go away, to Reggie here, it's a little bit of a reference to the song, Make the World Go Away, which to me is a thematic of the film. He talks about the center of the world can be anywhere you want. The center will not hold as far as Reggie's concerned. You want to make the world go away in a romantic way, so it's just the two of us and make the world go away because I can't deal with it anymore and I can't deal with you anymore. So it's a subtle thing, but it was always that idea of make the world go away and the center of the world was always in my head. This singer that you hear is called Helen Shapiro. Her name's Helen Shapiro. The song's Little Miss Lonely. And Helen Shapiro was a local girl. She was an East End girl with a great big woman's voice that she had when she was 16 years old even. And she was very popular for a few years in the 60s in London. and would have been from the same neighborhood as the Krays. So here you see the car as sort of the symbol of their marriage, now finally getting rained upon, and she knows so little about it, she can't get the top up and all those kind of sad things that this car, to me, embodies. Again, this location, Cedar Court, was the actual place where they did live, where Ron had the one apartment and they had the apartment above.
Help me.
Help you? What are we doing?
We had been very lucky with weather during the shoot. Wherever I needed it to be sunny, it was sunny. Whenever I needed it to be overcast, it was overcast. And we always lucked out. Never got rained on, even though it was London. And of course, we're manufacturing this rain. And it seemed very appropriate for the scene. It's a sad scene, and the glamour stripped away from these two a little bit. And she looks a little like a drowned rat with her hair hanging down and her dress all soaking wet. And he's looking not his usual dapper self. And it seemed very appropriate.
You look like shit and all.
This is basically Frances's act of violence here in the film, when she slaps him. You don't blame her. Yeah. It kicks things off in a way. Reggie's not used to being hit. It's certainly not to excuse him, but the fuse is lit for what's about to happen. Frances left Reggie, and she left him at a time when women didn't leave their husbands. Certainly no one left Reggie Kray. And something happened between the two of them, and no one ever knew what it was. And different people I talked to said, yeah, something went wrong, but no one knew what it was. And this is my artistic license. This is what I think happened between them. But it seemed like it was definitely violent. And what I decided was that he rapes her. And it seemed to fit into a lot of forensics and things that I learned about the relationship. But I pull away from it. And maybe it's because I'm a little unsure about it, and also it seemed like the way to shoot it in a way. It was between the two of them. But certainly something happened, and it happened one night. She left him the next day.
I'm leaving Reggie.
And here's the final scene between Frances and Ron, which is my favorite scene in the film. It's this farewell between them. Funny little thing in the background, Leslie Holt was a cat burglar in real life. Charlie in the background there, and so while he has a moment, he's checking the windows and the drain pipes in case he ever has to break in here.
Oh, come on, don't be daft. Look at the size of you. Look at the size of me. Come on. Come on. You know, Frances, sometimes...
There's a funny thing with bags, prop bags in films. They're always underweighted, and they don't look like they hang from the arm quite right. These are a little more weighted. You see that's dragging down on her shoulder a bit, so it feels a little more real.
I think so.
Absolutely, yeah. There's so many people know so much about it. Not you.
Tom had an ad lib there that he kind of took from a conversation he had with the criminal Bronson, I think, which is a very nice little thing as far as telling Frances to be free. But anyway, so this is farewell between the two of them, where they talk about things are ending, and they both have a sense of it, and Ron even has a sense of it. He's saying how someone's going to talk, and they're living on borrowed time, and a little disgusted with what his brother has done, as far as beating her up, what he can see of it.
I've got to go.
Yeah, of course you do. Listen to it, Frances, right? We both love him, all right? We both made...
It just makes for a very poignant moment between the two of them. He's talked about her being a ghost earlier, now he's talking about heaven. And I really think, in a sense, he knows she's going to kill herself, and he's saying goodbye to her on that level, really. The very last thing he says to her is that she sees the future like he does. In my head, that future is a very short future for Frances, and it's going to end in a couple of weeks when she commits suicide.
Always liked you, Frances, always did. Because you have the ability to see into the future. You do.
Carter has a very nice little thematic here for Ron that he always uses, which is a light thematic, which is counter to Ron, that you hear playing here. And uses it for the brothers as well. It segues now into Reggie and Francis's theme more in a darker version of it. So many scores these days are just telling you what to feel and driving the action and all those things, and Carter is still about thematics for the characters. He's playing the characters and not just background noise like so many scores are today. So anyway, so Frances, when she left Reggie, she moved in with her brother, who used to be Reggie's driver and had left. He had gone straight and gotten married and moved away, and he couldn't find her at first. And he tells this story about waiting underneath her window where he used to throw the sherbets up at the window, and she wasn't there. And it took him a while to track her down. And she was sort of hidden away here with her brother. And of course, she's had her farewell with Ron, and now this is her farewell with Reggie.
Yeah, she's here.
Yeah, I know.
Reggie,
what?
There's some funny stories that you hear about the Krays. Like some people say they never slept together, they never had sex, made love, Frances and Reggie. Because in her papers that she filed for divorce, she put non-consummation of the marriage as the reason for filing. And so people who dissect the Krays say, well, they never slept together because she filed for divorce based on non-consummation of the marriage. And when I investigated it, at that time, there were only two grounds for divorce a woman could file for, and one was non-consummation and the other was infidelity. And the truth was, as far as I could tell, Reggie hadn't been unfaithful to her. So there was no person to turn up to hold up as a guilty party in an infidelity. So the only other thing she could claim was non-consummation of the marriage. So that's what she had to check off to file for divorce, which is what she did in those few weeks in between. And that's where that rumor, I think, springs up from, if you ever hear it. If you research the Krays a little on your own, or if you already know the story and you wonder about that, there were two boxes to tick off, and that's the box she ticked off. But it certainly doesn't mean it was true. It was just what you had to file for.
I always imagined, I thought that we might have a child or two, you know?
Why? So you could use them to threaten me?
No, because I still love you.
No, it's just a thing you say out of loyalty to something that didn't exist in the first place.
That's not true. Loving you is the only thing that holds me together.
To me, I've talked about how he lies to her, and this is the culmination of it here, and she knows it when he says that he's changed, which is coming up. And she knows it's never going to be anything. Her dream of him as Prince Charming and her as Cinderella in a way is never going to happen, and she knows it.
Please let me make amends for the suffering and the pain that I have caused you, please. Please. Just let me take you somewhere.
Somewhere?
Yeah, it's anywhere.
Right here is, he says that he's changed to her. And he's lying. He hasn't changed. But he does love her. He wants her back.
Like our second honeymoon.
On one level, she's his wife. He loves her. He wants her back. On another level, she's a possession to him. He wants back. And when he says he's changed here, she clocks it very nicely. Right here.
All I'm saying is that the center of the world can be
which I really liked with her. It's just the last lie.
Ibiza.
Oh.
Ibiza.
Here's how the story goes. On this day, he came to see her and tried to convince her to go away with him, and they agreed to go to Ibiza, an island in the Mediterranean. And he bought these tickets. He went off that day and bought the tickets to go on the trip, and that night she committed suicide. He kept those tickets with him in prison, when he went to prison, and he was in prison for 33 years. And he was in different prisons. They would transfer him every once in a while. And the one physical constant in that journey of his was these tickets. And I was very struck by that. And it was a talisman almost of his lost love and his sins against her, in a sense. And Reggie wrote an autobiography, and when he gets to the chapter on, and I was very eager to read it when I was trying to learn about Frances. And when I got to that chapter, he said, I had a lot to say about Frances, but I kind of can't bring myself to do it, and I won't. And he moves on to the next chapter. And she obviously had a profound effect on his life. She always, as I said earlier, she was the ghost that haunted the story. And so when I was researching it, I would ask everyone what they thought of Frances, and I asked Freddie Foreman what he thought of her, and he said, well, she was a pretty girl. Everyone had a pretty girl, and that was Reggie's pretty girl. He was dismissive of her, and I met the actress Barbara Windsor. I had a photograph of the two of them at a club, and I asked her, and she remembered her vaguely, but couldn't really remember a lot about her. Just she was quiet and very pretty, and Reggie seemed to dote on her, and that was it. And I had kind of given up trying to find things out about her. And again, this guy, Chris Lambriano, who was in the firm and I spent a lot of time with, took me on a tour of the East End one day. And he took me where they boxed. He took me to the school where they went to school when they were little, or the church they went to the Policis where they had breakfast every morning. And finally, he took me to the Carpenter's Arms, and it was closed because they were painting inside. And it was twilight, and we were standing out on the street, and it was cold. And I realized he was waiting for his ride, and I realized I hadn't asked Chris about Frances. And I said to him, what can you tell me about Frances? And without hesitating, he said, well, Frances is the reason we all went to prison. And it was like the skid mark brakes went on in my head, and there was a car crash in my brain. And I knew the movie had just arrived in a way. And I said, well, what do you mean? And he said, before Frances died, Reggie would always sort everything out. So if someone in the neighborhood was seen talking to a policeman, Reggie would show up at the house the next day and knock on the door and say, what were you talking to the policeman about? What's going on? And he would sort it out. And if there was a trial going on that affected the firm, he would bribe jurors or bribe the judge or threaten people and get that thrown out of court. And if there was an investigation going on, he would bribe a policeman and pull strings that he had inside police departments all over the place because they were corrupt. And Chris said that after Frances died, he just stopped doing all that. He stopped sorting things out. He stopped putting out fires, so to speak. And it was all because of Frances. And Chris described to me how it was very much like he wanted everything to end. And the guys in the firm started noticing that they were being followed by the police, and they kept looking to Reggie to do something about it, and he would never do anything about it. And it was like he wanted them to come take him away. And the murder of McVitie sealed his fate. And I started to understand the murder of McVitie when I started to understand Reggie's mental state that he was in after she killed herself. And I couldn't have done that without Chris explaining it to me. And I'll get into that a little bit more shortly. But this was not a man who was thinking clearly anymore, and not a man who was interested in surviving anymore. So there were all these stories about McVitie, who you see here. Sam Spruill, by the way, playing Jack very well. And there were all these stories about why did Reggie kill him. And mostly a lot of them said it was random and there was no reason. And that, it was so violent the way McVitie was killed, I just couldn't accept that. And I had read many, many books. Everyone's written a book about the Krays, and they're all kind of tabloid and cheap in nature, but there's dozens and dozens of them, and I read dozens and dozens of them. And Leslie Payne, David Thewlis plays, wrote a book, and it's only a few hundred copies were printed, and it was very hard to find, and I finally found one on a used book site. Sent away for it, and it was the last book I read, but it was very helpful. I think it was called The Brotherhood. And he talks a lot about his relationship with the Krays and how they did things. And I read, and I'd read so many books, and I had learned so much by that time and done timelines, and I knew most of the stories. But what Payne described was that Ron had hired Jack the Hat McVitie to kill him. That he opened the door one night at his house where he lived, and there was Jack the Hat there to kill him on behalf of Ron, and that's what sent him to the police. And then suddenly I knew why Reggie went after Jack the Hat. So here we are in the cemetery. This is the cemetery they're actually buried at is Chingford Mount Cemetery, which if you're on a Kray tour is a definite stop that you have to make.
You killed her! You killed my daughter, you bastard. You killed her.
I really love this little scene. Tara Fitzgerald, Mrs. Shea, confronting Reggie, sort of the one person who can constantly go at it with these gangsters, and the spit rolling down the window on this long shot of Reggie with her screaming in the background after him, just seemed to really get across what he was going through, what he was feeling about himself even, and his state of mind in these final days leading up to Jack the Hat's murder. Here you see Jack has arrived to do his dirty deed. It's funny what you remember about scenes as a director, because you can never enjoy the film because you've made it and you've been there for everything. And I can tell you that we were trying not to go into our third hour of overtime this night. Everyone that's in charge of enforcing all those things were lurking around in the shadows and giving me dirty looks. And so we shot this very simply, but I think effectively. The effects guys did a great squib hit. It's my favorite, one of my favorite squib hits of all time. When you're directing films, these are the kind of things you start to remember are your favorite squib hits. And ricochets and shells ejecting from ports and things like that. This is, of course, Nipper's wall. This is very funny because I have a wall like this over my desk where I write at home, and I put up photos of everybody. So I was very keen to have this wall because it very much looked like the wall I had at home. Now, Chris Eccleston and David Thewlis have never done a scene together. And they've both been around for a good amount of time and worked all around each other in films in London. And you would have thought they would have ended up in a scene together and never have. And so they were very excited they finally have a scene together, and it turns out to be about 2 lines. So hopefully in another movie somewhere, maybe I'll make it or someone else will make it, there'll be some enormously complicated and wonderful scene for the two of them to be in. But their first meeting turned out to be a little bit of a short little bit there. So maybe I'll write a play for the two of them maybe someday. But there you have it.
Nipper,
Yeah, Nipper what?
So this is The Carpenter's Arms. Reggie's all alone now. Paul Anderson, who's a good friend of Tom's. They're in the show Peaky Blinders together. I think they're in The Revenant together also. It won't be a new film probably when you're watching this. It'll probably already have been out, but they're mates and have a great chemistry, great subtle chemistry together.
Oh, yeah.
So the killing of Jack McVitie happened at a place called Blonde Carol's. So there's a lot of blonde women here. And you're probably wondering which one is Blonde Carol, but none of them are Blonde Carol because Blonde Carol wasn't home that night. Her kids were. They were sleeping in a bedroom up those stairs, but they never woke up, they were 3 and 4 or 5 years old, and they never woke up during the whole thing. So good for them. Thank God for them.
Whoa.
We got Tammy Terrell and Marvin Gaye on the record player singing Something Stupid, which was also covered by Frank Sinatra and Nancy Sinatra. A lot of people have sung that song, but it's a little Motown making its way across the ocean. And Reggie showed up at this party in a kind of state of mind, a very glum state of mind, and it's the end, really.
At a party like this, you're not going to enjoy yourself. I'm waiting for Jack the Hat.
I really like this split screen. You see when Ron first sits down, he puts his hand on Reggie's knee.
Where'd you think?
And he puts his hand on his knee again when he gets up. And it's a split screen, but what we did was we had Jacob sitting in there for the knee. So we had to, it's Jacob Tamuri's knee and leg that marries into Tom Hardy's body. So that's how we do it. You can see it right here. So that little physical interaction really sells the moment between them.
Hello, where the birds at?
So now there's many accounts of this party. So many people were at it, and it's in the kind of lore of the Krays, and it's always described as the first line Jack the Hat said when he walked into the party was, "So where are the birds at?" So I decided to honor that part of the story, whether that's the actual thing he actually really said or not. these stories all become what it should have been and not what it was in a way, which is what movies are too. Movies are what life should have been, not what life is. Movie dialogue is how you should have said things, not how you really say things. But anyways, if you know the story of the Krays, and obviously in London and England, it's much more of a mythology than it is in the United States. Blonde Carols is a seminal event in the Kray mythology. We see the little tray there with a knife on it because, of course, Reggie stabbed Jack to death with a knife.
You got something on your mind, Reg?
Yeah. Yeah, you're on my mind, mate. Leslie Payne. What the fuck were you thinking? Eh? You've ruined this.
I don't know what you're on about.
I'm fucking lying, mate!
I'm not going to be fucking well treated.
Ron's killing is done much more like a gangland killing with a gun. One bullet to the head, Cornell, and this is a messy murder.
What happened to Francis?
I think, again, because of the state of mind Reggie's in, and his wife's overdosed on pills. Jack the Hat's a pill pusher, as he says here. And Jack the Hat's also tipped the police off in how the firm is going to be undone. And so he's a target for Reggie in a way, for all his anger and all the rage he's feeling and all the everything that's come about with Francis being gone. And again, not to make excuses for him, but I was very interested in the psychology of the moment. And I think that what I've described explains it all, explains the brutal nature of this killing. It's a combination of he's a violent person. Violence is part of who he is and what he does. And it's the circumstances of his wife's death and McVitie and all those things come into this one horrible moment, which under a different set of circumstances, Reggie maybe never does anything like this, but he does it, and it seals his fate as far as he's done it in front of a couple of dozen witnesses. There's no way to hush this up. It's going to lead to his downfall. And I very much believe that subconsciously it's part of why he did it. I very much like that line. That's my favorite line in the film when he says, "Why did you do it?" And he says, "Because I can't kill you." And again, further pulling apart the psychology of the moment. Earlier, I had talked about snow and how snow was a motif, and it was going to start snowing here like it did that night when the two of them were together on the Soho street. And we knew we couldn't afford it. But in the stage direction in the script, he looks up at the snow, and Tom must have remembered that because he looks up. And it's almost like he's looking up to heaven for her. And in post, I decided to add her voice, which you may or may not hear. We mix it very, very low. But it was very funny because when we were shooting, Tom looked up in the heavens like that. And I thought to myself, behind the camera, I thought, what's he looking at? And then I remembered that he's looking up at the snow. And the snow's not there anymore. But it still works very well as a moment. And as a moment of, to me, looking up, wondering where she is. Francis's narration disappears soon after her death. We have that little narration of hers when she's first died before we see her body, where she tells the audience that, you thought everything turned out for me because I wouldn't be able to narrate otherwise, but in fact she's narrating from beyond the grave, much like William Holden in Sunset Boulevard, although you know that from the start in his case. But it picks up again here now. She comes back into the story after departing for a bit. This was a great location. This is Regent's Canal in the East End. He's walking along what they call the towpath. And it seemed like a descent that his character makes into this brutal world that he's from. There's nowhere to go. Carter's score is great here. The horns, which have been muted up till now, are uncovered, and you hear them in all their glory. And here's the gasometer. At the beginning, when he brings Nipper the tea, you see this gasometer down the end of the street. And now here he is as a guy who never could kind of get away from the East End in a way, and from that kind of tough neighborhood. That the thing that produced him is the thing he can't get out of, in a sense. Here we see Jack the Hat wrapped up in the blanket off the beds that the kids were sleeping in, which is part of the myth as well. That car was parked out front there in front of a church, and when it was found by Fred Foreman, they sent Fred Foreman to get rid of it and get rid of the body, and that's where the confetti from the church wedding was, that's where that story came from.
Reggie, my prince. We were supposed to go to Ibiza after all.
We end with Reggie alone here, waiting for the inevitable, waiting for the police to come get him, which they did. There was a big sweep one early morning, and Nipper Reed sent detective squads out all across London and arrested all these guys all at once. They were locked away during the trial, and they never saw the light of day again. Except for when Reggie was dying at the end, he was released as you see on the card there, he was released a few weeks before he died. But he went straight into basically what you'd almost call a hospice today. But it was a hotel room where he was in a hospital bed and never made it home, never saw her again, obviously. And those tickets, if he had them on him, I don't know what happened to him, where they are today. Again, I like to believe that story's true. But again, it might be a myth of them as well. Here's a cast blessed with a very impressive cast, a who's who, murderer's row of British actors. And the great thing is that they just rock up and do their job. I don't direct them. The myth of a director sort of crafting their performances. These people come to set locked and loaded, and they know what to do. It's a little bit like, I always say it's like the circus of knife throwers. The knife thrower knows how to throw his knives. The ringmaster doesn't teach him how to throw knives. He just says a little to the left or a little to the right. Same with my crew here. Lucinda Sison did a great job assembling the cast. Caroline Harris with the costumes, Peter McNulty, editorial, Dick Pope, the grand dean of British cinematographers, Tom Conroy, Chrissy Blundell. I couldn't have done it without them. Again, as a director, you have all these designers helping you every step of the way. As a final little story, I went to their graves when I was researching, and it's Chingford Mount Cemetery, way outside of London, east London. And I couldn't find their graves at first. It was gloomy, it was drizzly, and I finally found their graves. And on a fence, there was a sign that had been posted, a printout, a laminated piece of paper, really, and it had blown off the sign and ended up near their graves. And it said, "Warning, thieves operate in this area." And, the irony that it had blown up near the Kray's graves, I found very funny. I took a photo of it. But then when I was thinking about it, I thought maybe it means me. Maybe I'm the thief. And I've showed up here to take on their story myself, as so many people have made a nickel or a dime off the story of the Krays. And now here I was looking for my nickel and my dime on the story of the Krays. And like I said, I thought maybe I was a thief that had arrived. So I took it very seriously, all that, and they're gone. And I tried to be true to who I thought they were as people, in a sense. You're never going to tell someone's life story in 2 hours, much less three people's life stories in 2 hours. But I thought if I could try to get to the essence and the heart of who they were and stay true to that I would have done right by them. And I hope I have. I don't make excuses for them. I think I show what they did. But at the same time, if you're going to tell a story like this, you have to be with them. You have to be on ground level with them. You can't be looking up to them, and you can't be looking down on them. But you got to be with them, and that's what the movie does. And I'm very proud of that, and ground level with the boys and with her. And there's always going to be someone saying that that's not right and this isn't right. But if that's right, if you get their nature up there, I think you've done all you can do. It's a movie. At the same time, it has to entertain and tell a story. And it wasn't hard to do with them because they were movie characters in a way. I didn't have to make them bigger than they were. I just had to bring them into the story. Again, montage of Carter's music here. We heard also A Whole Lot of Love, the song Duffy wrote for the end of the film. Again, it's that line that Frances's narration, she keyed off that at the beginning when Frances says, talking about Reggie, "It took a lot of love to hate him the way I do." That was a good way, I thought, to start the movie and then end the movie with her very well-done song that she wrote. And I think that wraps it up. Thank you very much for listening. I hope you enjoyed it. And this has been my version of the legend of the legend. Thank you very much.